Just wanted to go live for just a little bit. Hi, everybody. I wanted to go live for just a little bit because I've been seeing a lot of conversations lately that have to do with a practice that I and many others are seeing on LinkedIn. And I want to talk to you about whether or not this is a best practice or a worst practice. And I know there are going to be varying opinions about this. And I would love to hear yours. So please let me know in the comments what you think. In fact, feel free in the comments to tell me what your best practice and worst practice might be. Hang on, I need to remove. We're having trouble on LinkedIn, it says. I don't know why. Yeah, we'll try that again. But all right. Yeah, I'm still here. It just told me it was having trouble broadcasting, so I had to click something again. But we're going to talk about whether or not this one practice in particular is a best practice or worst practice. And again, let me know your thoughts in the comments or what your best practices and worst practices are, because we're all better with the collective, right? Well, if we haven't met, I am Nancy Merland with Merland Marketing and Social Media, and I'm a marketing content social and digital media advisor for lawyers and their law firms. So I want to talk about this. But first, we have a sponsor for today, and it is my very own, the Lawyers Marketing Academy VIP, that's getting ready to open soon. And so I just wanted to let you know about that. I believe there is a link in the comment if you want to get on the list. And in case you haven't heard me talk about it yet, the Lawyers Marketing Academy VIP is going to be a monthly membership community where I will teach lawyers how to wisely, effectively, efficiently, and safely use social and digital media, content, and personal branding to develop relationships and grow their practice. So that's today's sponsor. Well, let's get to our topic for today about whether or not this is a best or worst practice on LinkedIn. I have heard and seen a lot of really concerned, some complaints lately. And what people are seeing, and I'm seeing it too, is that people are approaching them in direct messages, private messages, and they're selling to them right away. And they may not have even met yet. And that's a big concern because there are people out there, and I know there are people out there that teach this approach. And one of my approaches is never to badmouth what somebody else is teaching necessarily, but to show rather what my opinion is and what I think is a better practice. So there are those, and let me explain what this looks like. In my direct messages, for example, I had one, I don't know, a couple weeks ago or so, and tell me in the comments if you've had this, about somebody approached me and they said, Nancy, I see that you're a lawyer and I'd like to get to know more lawyers here on LinkedIn. So, is it okay if we connect here? And a lot of times I'll let these go because if you take time and you reply to every one of them, then, you can just spend your whole day replying to people who didn't do their research. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to reply. So I replied and I said, thanks, but I'm not a lawyer. And just curious, are you using automated software? And I got a reply back from him. And he said, no, I'm not. They let you do this in LinkedIn Navigator. I am just telling it keywords and asking it to connect with people automatically. And so we went back and forth a little bit. And I said, my biggest concern is that this doesn't necessarily make people look good when they're sending direct messages, private messages that make it very clear that there wasn't research done. And by research, that means looking at my profile for 2 seconds to know that nowhere, okay, 5 seconds, okay, 10, that nowhere does it say I'm a lawyer. But what's happening is there's a lot of automated software, and what it's doing is you put in keywords, and then what it does is it goes all over LinkedIn and it scrapes profiles looking for these keywords. And in this case, obviously one was lawyer. And then this person makes the assumption that everybody who comes up in this bot's software must be a lawyer if the word lawyer is used in their bio. So, you know what? Let's send them a connection request. not personal, not one-on-one. Well, it's as one-on-one as you can get with a bot, right? Like sending a proxy to a meeting for you, or a robot, in other words. And my concern is that you and I are here to create relationships with people. And when we don't take the time to do a little bit of research, the bare necessities, then what we're doing is we're turning people off. Now, every time this discussion comes up in various groups, I will hear a few people, I will read a few people come in and say, well, that's fine, but it's working for me. And working for me, well, I mean, what is working for me? What does it mean? You're getting people are accepting your requests to connect. Well, that doesn't mean that the platform or that bot is working for you, does it? I mean, it doesn't mean that you have turned those contacts into true connections. And I talk a lot about, if if we've been around each other very long, I talk a lot about turning contacts into connections, whether that's on LinkedIn or that's anywhere. And how do you do that? Well, you and I can have a hobby of collecting contacts in our CRM or in our virtual address books, whatever you use to keep track of emails and contacts. And if you don't do anything with those, if you don't make some kind of attempt to genuinely interact and get to know somebody and turn them into a connection where you have really connected, then you just have a hobby of collecting contacts. And that's not what social media is about, is it? I mean, I'm going to answer that. No, it's not about that. It's not about a numbers game of amassing as many contacts as you can have. I mean, that's a losing game as far as I'm concerned. Yes. Is it important to grow one's email list? Yes, of relevant contacts, but not just amassing numbers of people who you can then call connections and followers just because you have sent them a request on any of the platforms and they've chosen to accept it. And it's a growing area of concern for a lot of people because it's taking time out of their day to even look at these messages. It's making them feel uncomfortable about the platform because then you start to hear more comments about, well, I don't know. Should I go over there and spend time because I'm just getting these smarmy messages. And I get a lot of them. Actually, I get a lot of them that assume I'm a lawyer because I talk so much about lawyers in my profile. And I get that. I do. But to assume that I'm a lawyer, I mean, I don't know. That's like saying that to assume every pet shop, everyone who works in a pet store is a fish just because they mention fish on their profile. I mean, that's so silly. And that was a silly analogy, I know, but you get the point. I mean, it takes a little bit of extra time and effort to network. I mean, this isn't my term, my saying, but this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And when you are networking in person, were your expectations that you would approach somebody and they would become a client or a referral source or media who would include you in a story on that first instance? I doubt it. Sometimes it takes years. Now, the nice thing about social and digital media are that because we can increase our exposure that much quicker in these spaces, then yes, we can accelerate those relationships and we can nurture them a little bit faster than we can only doing it in person. I'm not saying in-person networking should go. It shouldn't. Someday we'll be able to get back to that or get back to some form of that when all of this is past. But it is a tremendous complement to it. But what I don't want to see happen is that so many shortcuts are being taken and sloppy practices that only make people look bad when they are out there networking like this and taking these shortcuts and not really taking the time to connect and look. I mean, I also get a lot of messages and I even get a lot of emails from people who are obviously scraping my email from sources saying, oh, you know what? I do so, I'm paraphrasing, I do social and digital media, or I do social media. And I think you could use some help with your social media. Or somebody who said, are you taking, this is another one. I seem to get this a lot. I saw, and I bet you all get these too if you have a blog and or a podcast, and they'll say, and they'll give an example link. Oh, I just read this post, and they'll just throw, even if it's 10 years old, the link of a blog post in there and just say, you know what, I'd love it if you'd link to my blog post out of yours because it's related. And most times it's not even related. And I'm left thinking, what the heck? Again, automated, or they have people that they are paying nothing to, just churning these out, 500 of them an hour, just trying to find people who will let them link out of their content. Or the other one I get, and my podcast is, it's just my choice because it's what I have time for and it's my style right now. My podcast is always under 10 minutes and it's just me. There aren't guests. Only one time when I was at a conference did I have a guest. Every other episode, there are no guests. And I will regularly get emails and people will say, I listened to your podcast. I've listened to your podcast and I would love to be a guest on it sometime. You've had many fine guests. I'd love to be a guest sometime because I talk about, well, it's nothing that has anything to do with legal marketing. And if the name Legal Marketing Minutes, which is the name of my podcast, doesn't tell people right up front that I work with lawyers and they send me a comment or an email or a private message like that asking to be on my podcast, and it has nothing to do with lawyers or any service that lawyers would ever care about, there's nothing that proves faster that they don't care about my market and they're just looking for some odd kind of exposure. So that is why, it's sort of my question, is this a LinkedIn best practice or worst practice? I think there are a few of you, a very few, probably not many of my connections because we don't end up connecting on LinkedIn, a few of you that would say, oh yeah, that's a best practice. And I do that and it works for me. So, haha. But I think most of you would probably agree with me that this is not a really good networking practice. So that is my message for you today. And that's what this live stream is about today. Just wanted to touch base with you, do a short one, and check in with you and see how everybody's doing. So let me know in the comments whenever you see this. I would be happy to know how you feel about that practice and what you think some other best and worst practices are. All right. Well, again, I think I put a link up in the comment, but if you would like to get on the notification list when the Lawyers Marketing Academy VIP is getting ready to open to founding members, which means the lowest price members, because every time I open after that, it will probably be different. Then again, no obligation. Then just get on the list so that I can send you information when that time comes. All right. Again, Nancy Merland Marketing and Social Media. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you again soon. Take care.